dark outside.
I know.
Dreary. It's rained all day, but here we are. So thank you for all the work we've been doing, and it's good to see everybody. We have a short work session, and of very important topics. We're going to start by looking at national homeless data and county data. So if I can get Ms. Elliott, Dr. Pettiford, Ms. Johnson, you're first up. Oh, Ms. Moore's going to tee us off.
Yeah.
All right.
So Miss Elliott and Dr. Pettiford are out of town, and so I'll be joining Darlene at the table. Who's going first? Okay, nobody wants to sit in the middle. Okay. So we're bringing to the board, this is National Recognition Month for Homeless Youth, and we were going to do an information item for the board, but decided that we would take this opportunity to extend a conversation that we began a few months ago in the Student Achievement Committee around our services to homeless students. And so we've got some folks here, and I'll let Darlene introduce so that we can give you an update on, bringing attention to the recognition this month and in the work that we're currently doing in the district.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. Welcome, Ms. Johnson.
Thank you. We're honored today to be here just to tell you a little bit about the work that we do to serve some of the most vulnerable children and families in our district. We have a very solid program serving our students, and we know that because we're part of the state association as well. We have Michelle Mazingo today to represent us for the district liaison. She serves the whole, all of the schools, but within each school she has appointed the social workers as the designee for the liaisons. So they assist her with getting the information back, actually working with over 160 agencies in the community that provide services, basic community needs, those kinds of things. So we really do work alongside our community quite well. I'm going to introduce Michelle Mazingo, who is our district liaison for our McKinneyVento program, and she will go ahead and present on the data.
Yes, thank you.
Welcome, Ms. Mazingo.
Thank you. Thank you so much for taking time today to recognize November as National Homeless Youth Awareness Month. In 2006, Congress designated this month to bring about awareness to student homelessness and the programs that support students in transition. And you'll hear me say students in transition versus students who are homeless, because our families and our students do not identify with the word homeless. When they think of homeless, they have a vision of what that is, and that's not who they identify with. So we use the term students in transition because their living situations are transitional situations. And I know that Dawn, thank you so much, Dawn. So next slide. Thank you. So each year, 1.6 million children experience homelessness in the United States. And within North Carolina, we typically identify 26,000 to 27,000 students annually. Those students are identified by public school districts and charter schools, and that information is provided to DPI, which then in turn sends the information to the North Carolina Homeless Education Program. And next slide. North Carolina Education Program monitors and oversees the McKinneyVento Program. And the McKinneyVento Program is federal legislation entitled the McKinneyVento Homeless Assistance Act. It was enacted in the 80s to remove numerous barriers to students in transition trying to receive a free, appropriate public education. So for example, if I found myself in homelessness in the 80s and needed to enroll my child in school, and maybe I was so mobile that I had lost the birth certificate along the way, I wasn't able to enroll my child in school because I didn't have the birth certificate. So the McKinneyVento program provides families who are in transition with certain rights and services to remove those barriers. And next slide. And so with the McKinneyVento program for Wake County Public Schools, there is some funding attached to it. We have been awarded a 3-year grant through the North Carolina Homeless Education Program, and that money is used towards school supplies and towards a support position for the program. We have a data manager position, And that position helps to initiate services for students as well as provide support for the program and for our liaisons in the field. We also have some Title I funds for the McKinneyVento program, and that funding is typically used to share the cost of the Title I summer school program. Our students have dedicated spaces, slots if you will, for the Title I summer program. They do have to be academically eligible for that program, but we are able to offer it to them, even students who are in non-Title I schools. We also have a pilot program in a high-needs middle school where we have a dedicated school social worker who works with the McKinneyVento identified students to help families, to provide intensive interventions to families and to students, to help families become more stable and help students achieve academically. And part of that pilot program is an after-school tutoring program that's provided at that school, and we have removed the barrier of those students being able to participate. So we're providing transportation home for them so that they can participate in that after-school program. We're hoping to collect the data for that and to then expand it to other schools. The other piece is the parent involvement piece. We do a lot with parents, and one of the things that we do is we have a parent workshop in collaboration with Marbles Kids Museum and an organization called CATCH, which is Community Action Targeting Children Who Are Homeless, housed out of the Salvation Army. And we collaborate with them to provide parent workshops 4 times a year at Marbles Kids Museum so the kids can play and the parents get more information on how to support their children in school while they're in transition. Next slide, please. So within the legislation, we have liaisons, and so that is my position. Every public school district and charter school has a McKinneyVento liaison. It's mandated within the law, and my role is to make sure students who are experiencing homelessness are identified, to make sure they're enrolled in school and actively participating in class, to make sure the services that are provided under this legislation are provided to our students, and to make sure that the family is aware of their rights underneath this law. Next slide. So with that, so we have a large school district, and I'm only one person. So as Darlene mentioned earlier, we have school liaisons, school McKinneyVento liaisons. In the elementary and middle school, it is the school social worker, and at the high school, it is the SAP counselor. And those positions are there to make sure within their school building that students who are experiencing homelessness are identified, enrolled, make sure that they're actively participating in classes, that services are provided, and that they are familiar with what their rights are within that school.
And can you remind us who the SAP counselor is?
Sure, it stands for Student Assistance Program Counselor. It's a mouthful.
Is that like a social worker, or is it more
A
like
lot of them are certified as licensed social workers, but they don't have to be. But they do need to have a counseling background, and they cover a range of needs that students may have in the building. They tend to be the counselor that pulls groups around substance abuse or peer mediation, tobacco awareness, a number of different kinds of things in the school depending on what the needs of the children are.
Next.
Next slide, please. So students who qualify for this program and the services provided, which we'll discuss in a moment, are students who lack a fixed, regular, and adequate nighttime residence. So in other words, students who are living in a temporary living situation because they lost their previous housing. So some examples that we see are doubled up. You'll hear that term quite a bit. It's where families are sharing the housing of other families due to a loss of housing. It's a lot of words to say, if I were in an apartment and I were evicted tomorrow, I may take my family and move in with my sister for just a little while till I can figure out what I need to do. So that's an example of doubled up, and that's about half of our students who are identified are in doubled up living situations. Also, our hotels and motels. In our county, we've seen a significant increase in the last few years with hotels and motel living. And again, they're there because of a loss of housing, like an eviction or a foreclosure. And then, of course, when we think homeless, we think shelters, transitional housing programs, cars, parks, and other similar settings would qualify for this program as well. Next slide. To identify our students, students who are new to Wake County Schools, there's a questionnaire in the enrollment packet that helps the person who's working on the enrollment to see if maybe the family's in a living situation that may qualify for our program, and then they're referred to the school liaison for an assessment. But we also get referrals through the community, through staff, through parents, caregivers, and students themselves. Next slide. So we last year identified 2,736 students in this program. And as you can see, we've steadily increased every year. It's been about a 23% increase since we started collecting data in 09-10 school year. And if you'll notice, the 11-12 school year through the 13-14 school year saw a bit more of a difference, a bit more of an increase. And we attribute that to a couple of things. One being, we saw there for a little while a lot of families moving into the county because they thought there would be more resources here and more job opportunities. And that is also when we saw an increase in hotel living. We also were doing a lot more training at that time with the school districts and our liaisons and the community. So I think between the awareness increasing as well as families being displaced from other counties and coming to Wake thinking that they were going to have a better opportunities, we saw quite a bit of increase in those years.
Tom had, Mr. Bennett had a question.
Yes.
If I could back up just a little bit.
Sure.
I see that we have school staff referrals and we have training of district staff. Have we trained our school staff and sort of looked for, because the questionnaire when they enrolled, my understanding of this group, just because they were or were not homeless when they enrolled doesn't mean that in January they are not going to be. So, and it looks like because the numbers are increasing that we're doing a better job of identifying, but frequently it's going to be that the teacher spots something that indicates a follow-up. So are we training our teaching staff on to look for us for this?
Yes. Did you want to?
Yes. Our McKinneyVento liaisons, the school social workers in the schools, are the SAPs in the high schools. Part of the social work staff responsibility is to go ahead and train the school staff. At a faculty meeting, there are signs up that are in the guidance office as you walk into the school that are required to be there so that we can identify. We really want to continue to increase awareness so that they can identify students who already are enrolled.
So I guess the real question is, are y'all confident that we are servicing the vast majority of homeless kids, or do we have a pool out there that we still are not identifying?
Well, I think even the state coordinator for the North Carolina Homeless Education Program would say that North Carolina as a whole is still under identifying. So we are working towards trying to do better about getting the word out there, bringing awareness to our teachers, because you're right, they are the person that's probably going to see and notice things the most. And so getting it out there and making sure people are aware. So I do think that we could do better at identifying students. We do have materials that we distribute to the teachers as well, and we're working on providing some online training and really getting the word out there so that our teaching staff can be a huge part in helping us identify students. They already, when they have a concern about a student, whether it's, they suspect homelessness or not, they do a great job at referring that family and that student to the school social worker naturally or to the SAP counselor. So we're able to kind of look and do the assessments at that time too. That's a great question. Thank you.
Johnson Costa.
Yes, and actually a follow-up, but a different group of stakeholders, and that's community support organizations.
Yes.
And so I'm curious about what our outreach looks like to them. Again, we'd like to think that these families would let the school know, but oftentimes they don't,
Right.
especially when they really are in transition.
Right.
And so they may be seeking support services. So how
Sure.
much engagement do we have at the stakeholder level?
We have a slide where we'll talk about community collaboration, but we have quite a bit of that. So we do look to the community to help us identify families, to help get families referred to us so that we can serve them in the school system. Absolutely.
We'll get a little more detail in a few minutes.
Because I have several questions, because as you know, I've had these calls already.
Sure.
Okay, and Dixon, thank you. Typically what we see is about half of our students who are identified are in the elementary age group, and that matches national statistics. Next slide. The National Association for the Education of Homeless Children and Youth pulled together data to create a student profile. And what we see is the same thing in our district. So we see that students who are in transition, they're sicker than other students. They are twice as hungry as other housed peers. They have 3 times the rate of emotional and behavior problems than our housed peers. They are typically developmentally delayed, have learning disabilities. Next slide. They typically score lower on standardized tests. They have frequent absences and tardies, increased likelihood of dropping out. But the big thing is as they switch schools, and this is a national statistics as well, they typically lose 4 to 6 months of learning. So McKinneyVento, the program, is really all about school stability and providing that stable place that they can go to so that they can achieve success academically. So as we're talking about these students, we've identified the challenges faced by these kids, and these kids, have all of these challenges we just discussed, yet they're expected to come to school every day and perform just as well as their housed peers. So they have a lot on them. So I want to talk about, before I get into the specific services of this legislation, I want to just point out our school buildings. Our school buildings already naturally have great support services in place for our kids in transition. And so some of those things, like the nurse's office, our social and emotional support provided by our counselors and our school social workers, lockers for a place to store their belongings. We have showers and washing machines that have been utilized for families and students who meet this definition of homelessness. So there's a lot of things. It's daytime shelter for our kids. So our school buildings themselves are quite a great support for our kids in transition. But specifically underneath this legislation, the services that are provided to our families who qualify for the program are free meals. There are 2 school choices with transportation. So they are able to attend their attendance area school as any other housed student would. They're also able to continue at their school of origin. The school of origin is the school that they're attending when they become displaced. So as part of the services, transportation is provided to and from the school of origin. They're also afforded immediate enrollment. So again, back to the example I used previously about the birth certificate. Upon enrollment, they don't necessarily have to have all of those required documents that other housed families would. We do need to get those documents after enrollment, but upon enrollment, they don't have to have that information. So that allows them to get into school and get to class while we collect the information that we need. And then, of course, they can't be discriminated against if they're looking to access some of their other academic opportunities within the district. Next slide. So with our particular McKinneyVento program in Wake County, we also have our students participating, as I mentioned before, in the Title I Summer Program. We collaborated with YMCA to provide dedicated slots for our kids to participate in their summer programming throughout the county and in some of the Y Learning programs after school. We talked about the after-school program pilot project that we're doing with the dedicated school social worker, so we're hoping to duplicate that in the future. We have clothing referrals. We provide clothing using Note in the Pocket. It's a great organization that provides clothing to our impoverished and homeless children. And then, of course, we collaborate with parent workshops that we provide 4 times a year that we talked about previously. Next slide. So we also have organizations that we work with, and as Darlene mentioned before, our school social workers work with about 168 agencies and organizations within our community. One of those is the Support Circle. I'm not sure if you're all familiar with Support Circle, but it's a group that gathers together the members of the faith community, and those members help support and mentor a family who's transitioning from homeless shelter into permanent housing. We work very closely, of course, with all the shelters in the area, with the Partnership to End Homelessness. There's several different organizations and agencies that we work pretty closely with. And I wanted to take a moment to pause to answer your questions.
So I can ask some offline, but I guess the biggest one for me is, at what point in the transition do you remove your work with them as a McKinneyVento? So given that they're all in transition, do you have this is the line that we've decided that they are no longer a student in transition?
Oh, that's a great question. So services provided underneath the McKinneyVento program last all academic year despite their living situation. At the end of the academic year, towards the end of the academic year, our school liaisons will reassess each family's living situation to determine, are they stable? Not necessarily do they have permanent housing yet, but are they stable? And then the families that are stable and or have permanent housing would no longer qualify for the program going into the next school year.
And I think those are all the student calls that I get at the beginning of the school year.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. And then over the summer, you know, if the family becomes displaced over the summer, certainly, you know, if they reach out to us at central office or to the school, we can identify them and get them into their school of origin the following school year. But yes, you are correct. Excellent. And so I just want to reiterate that this program is a wonderful program in that it really does promote school stability. And I've seen it in the work I've done with families and students, that students really can flourish and grow if they have that one stable, safe, secure place to go every day and those positive relationships. It's really, I've seen kids really succeed both emotionally and socially and academically. So it's a great program, and I appreciate the opportunity to share it with you today.
Thank you for that quote, that was very powerful. And your presentation.
Thank
for
you.
the material stuff. Any other questions for Ms. Johnson or Ms.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you.
So as Dawn Dawson joins me at the table, our next item on the agenda is to provide you an overview of programming that we're currently doing in our early learning office around early start pre-K and trying to reach some kids that it's really part of the big umbrella of services that we have in early learning, and trying to reach children in lots of different ways to help as much as possible, having them be prepared for kindergarten. So I'm going to turn it over to Dawn and let them go.
Good afternoon, I'm Dawn Dawson, the Senior Director for Early Learning, and with me today is Gay Litton, who's back at the computer. She's the Director of Preschool Programs, and here at the table is Becky McGee. She's our Senior Administrator for PreK Title I.
Good to see you all.
So,
Yeah.
thank you
Tell
for
us
having
about
us.
the
Thank you for the opportunity, definitely, we're excited. So, as you take a look at that first slide, you'll see the alignment to our strategic plan. And we really feel like the connection here is with the achievement objective. If you take a look at this achievement objective, and we really feel like by providing this additional support to students who we know already have academic needs and are behind, by giving them this intervention up front, that's really going to help them be better prepared for kindergarten so that they don't come to school even further behind. So we feel like this directly connects to the achievement objective. Our next slide is focused on our vision. This is our department's vision, and you'll see here that we really are focused on high quality services for families and solid, good instruction for students. So that really is the core of our work in our department. Some of you have seen this slide before at a previous presentation, and this is just a reminder about the continuum of services that we offer within the Office of Early Learning. We have Project Enlightenment over on the left, which focuses on birth to 5, does a lot with community outreach, childcare, as well as the school system, a lot with families and caregivers. And then Preschool Programs provides much more direct service to students. And the target ages are 3 to 5 with early start, direct classroom support. But we do have a continuum of services, and our focus really is to get families and students ready for kindergarten. So as we go into this next slide, we're going to really dig into early start. So I'm going to turn that over to Ms. McGee, who is the program coordinator for our early start program.
Good afternoon. I'm very excited to share about our Early Start program. Early Start is a full-day, 3-week program intended for rising kindergarten students. Children who are registered for kindergarten at their base school are eligible to participate in the summer program. Transportation is provided for all students who choose to access. Snack and lunch are also offered during the summer program of students participating. And Early Start is one of the summer programs that's offered during the Wake County Public Schools Summer Camp. Others include the School Age Title I that you've heard Michelle refer to previous, the ESL, and Read to Achieve.
So you see, we're achieving some economies of scale around transportation and use of building by combining the timing of all of those.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Recruitment for the Early Start program begins in the month of April at participating traditional Title I schools. Each Early Start site hires a contact teacher to assist in the recruitment and screen all potential students participating. The families complete an application, they submit it to the Early Start contact teacher, and then they're also provided a screening date to determine academic need. To determine the academic need, we use a selection criteria, and there are 4 indicators. One being the raw score of the Brigance screening. The second one is limited to no preschool experience. The responses from a parent survey that each family is asked to fill out, and we offer that in English and in Spanish. And then we also partner with Michelle and Darlene's group with homeless students attending non-Title I schools. They also have the option to participate. And Early Start contacts hired for the Early Start program, they work closely with the school social workers that Michelle had mentioned to identify the homeless students and offer family the opportunity to participate in this enrichment program. And transportation is also provided for families for this program. Next, Early Start curriculum focuses on early literacy skills, number sense, as well as kindergarten readiness activities. Our goal is to prepare them as they enter kindergarten. Transitioning, classroom routines, and structures are also key elements implemented throughout the 6-hour school day. An average daily school day consists of arrival activities, morning meeting, a literacy block, social and emotional lesson, large motor movement, lunch, math, and then a closing meeting to end each day.
So I think it's important to note what Becky said earlier about a target being students who have little or no previous preschool
Yes.
experience. Because when those children come into the school setting for the first time, even on a staggered entry, the notion of the order of school and what that schedule and function looks like can be overwhelming. So in addition to targeting skills that allow them to be successful that are academic skills, the social, emotional skills, and just being accustomed to what being in school is when they've not had that experience is incredibly important, and that's a large part of what they're focusing on.
Yes, thank you.
Do you have a clarifying question?
What percentage of our elementary schools are Title I,
We actually,
roughly?
Yes.
I believe our total is 40, we have 45, so just under half, I believe, of our elementary schools are Title I.
Okay, so, if I'm reading this correctly, if I'm in a non-Title I school and I'm not homeless, I don't have access to these programs.
That is
That is
correct.
correct. Sure, I'm in sort of transition.
This is why every year you see us requesting increases to our PreK program.
Yes.
Thank you. Say that louder, please.
But this is
Because
why
PreK
every year we try to increase the footprint of our PreK programs in our schools.
Because PreK negates the need for this. This is
Yes,
sort
it
of a
does.
Band-Aid because we don't have enough PreK
That's
Correct.
correct.
services.
This is the last option to catch them for a few weeks when they've not had an opportunity to be in PreK.
But if
But that
I'm in a
was-
non-Title I school, I don't even have a Band-Aid.
So that was my question, is how many pre-K programs do we have during the year? and
Total pre-K.
133 PK classrooms in our district.
Classroom.
Classroom.
Classrooms.
Right.
How
And-
schools?
I'm sorry.
If you all know how many schools, this is the hot seat. Let's see, I believe it's around 79.
Yes.
It's around
I was
that.
thinking 78. So
Okay.
78, 79.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. And then the last bullet, parent connections, we're very proud of this piece as well for our Early Start program. we provide families a number of opportunities for them to engage in their child's education, since we're laying the foundation to school. And during the Early Start program, at the beginning of the summer program, we offer an open house to participating families. We also invite them to a family night event at the Marbles Kid Museum, where our Wake Up and Read is also connected to that event, providing books for children that come out to the nightly event. In addition, each host site provides a book fair that allows every child to choose 2 books to add to their family library. And I brought a sample today if you would like to see what type of books were provided for the students attending. And then on top of that, weekly fun packets are sent home at the beginning of each week that provide families literacy, math, and social emotional activities that align to the curriculum that's being taught during the 3-week program. And then lastly, at the end of the summer, the 3-week summer camp, there's a celebration where children can showcase their work and what they've learned during their time in school. We also had parents complete a survey at the end of our program, and some of the results were just outstanding that I'd like to share with you. 100% of parents responding to our survey, 93% of them were very satisfied. 7% were somewhat satisfied with the Early Start program, and no parent noted that they were not satisfied who completed the survey. When we asked families, do you feel that your child is better prepared for kindergarten due to his or her experience with the Early Start program, 99.5% families responded yes. We had 1 respond no. So we took that as a huge celebration. I'd also like to share 3 quotes that parents made a point to notate on their survey. 1 quote stated, "Make it longer. She absolutely loved it and is looking forward to the school year, and it minimized the anxiety. Thank you." Another quote, "I think this program is great, especially for transitioning to kindergarten. My son feels better prepared to start school in August. Thank you." And the last one I'd like to share, "The program made significant changes in my daughter. This indicates how wonderful the program is. My child can identify numbers, letters correctly, and she is interested in math. We practice at night together. Thank you very much." So you will notice at the chart before you, Early Start has grown significantly over the last 3 years. In 2013, 19 Early Start classrooms were held with 249 students participating. This past summer, you will see 32 classrooms participated with a number of 430 students were actually attending a program. Early Start classes consist of 15 students, 1 teacher, and 1 teacher assistant, and it is funded through Title I district funds. Over the past 2 years, students in the Early Start program has made substantial gains with print concepts, number sequencing, as well as learning classroom rules and routines. Before we move into the data, I would also like to share with you a story from one of our Early Start teachers from this last summer program. It was the first day of Early Start, and Dorothy, the teacher, recognized Diego from the screening. He was very shy and spoke no English. She remembered that he had never been enrolled in preschool, and this was going to be his first experience in a school setting. During the first few days, Dorothy observed that Diego was slow to become animated. He didn't have eye contact and spoke very little with his friends. He was having some trouble understanding what was being said, and his responses were not fluent in English. The entire school and classroom environment were foreign to him. The language was uncertain, and the people were all new. Each day, Dorothy noticed that Diego began to enjoy books and shared reading. The daily routines were taught, structures were in place, schedules were learned, and transitions were expected by Diego. Diego was engaged in readiness activities using school tools and maneuvering the hallways, which can be challenging. Dorothy reported that by middle of the week, Diego was helping others with class routines, writing his name, he was beginning to count, and the teacher noticed a sense of confidence in Diego. Dorothy was anxious to review her post-test results for the class. She was excited to see how far students had come in such a short time. Based on the data, her students had made significant progress. Diego had made great gains in both print concepts and number knowledge. Diego's parents also expressed appreciation for the program and for their child's growth at the parent event. They were excited for him to start kindergarten and share how different his attitude was about going to school and how he had become interested in books and reading. A few weeks later, after Early Start had ended, Dorothy received her greatest reward. The first day of traditional school was starting. Dorothy was nearly bowled over by a giant, huge hug from behind with exclaiming, "I remember you. You were my teacher. Remember me? I'm Diego. I'm in kindergarten." And Dorothy stopped and reflected, as most teachers do at various times. She does not teach curriculum, she teaches children. She was proud of the difference she and the Early Start program made for Diego. So thank you for letting me share that personal story from the teacher. And with that, we have some slides. And as you review the pre and post print concept data from 2014, you will notice students made growth in all concepts. Particularly if you look at the one concept, where to begin reading a book, students grew 42.6% from the pre and post assessment. Also, the other literacy concept, where to begin reading on the page, students showed 48.2% gain during 2014. 2015, our print concept data represents similar growth as the 2014. The highest growth in our pre and post literacy concept this past summer was the purpose of a period, which had a growth of 54.6%. So children really learned and understood that concept at the end of a sentence and what a period means. We also offer, along with print concepts, the number knowledge math assessment. And so next is the 2014 number knowledge test assessment, which is developed to measure a student's conceptual knowledge of number sense. The number knowledge assessment is administered individually to each student and requires oral responses, more of a mental math concept. And you will notice by the post-test, students had a better understanding of sequencing and number sense.
Do you have any sense if the math numbers look better than the reading numbers?
All right.
And is there any sense as to the origin of that?
We've actually been having that conversation like over the last few months, trying to figure out why that might be, and we really don't have an exact answer. So that is something that we're investigating.
Is it perchance that math, because at this level it's manipulative math, is seen in more settings, whereas reading is narrowly isolated to the book?
That could be.
I mean, I think there are some skills that children have to exercise around mathematical concepts early on and just play even, that don't exist if you don't have and the literacy, they don't exist in literacy if you don't have a book. For example, when you look at the skill of knowing where the cover is, or how to hold a book right side up and know where to start, you can't do that with anything other than a book, like you said.
And then the next slide shows the number knowledge assessment for 2015, and students made gains again across the board, so we were very pleased. So our next steps, as we look into the future, we're focused on a few strategies. We hope to require that all 2015-16 Title I traditional schools participate in the Early Start program. That would increase our numbers from 32 this past summer to 44. We also would like to collaborate with Wake County's Communications Department to promote the Early Start program to families, to traditional Title I schools, to help us get the word out to the families. And then lastly, expanding our family connections by providing each student not only with some books to add to their library at home, but also a resource bag with materials and manipulatives and extension activities that align and correlate to our Early Start curriculum.
I have one quick question when we talk about both the Band-Aid expansion. Does that mean that you currently don't have a wait list at any of your schools who are implementing this? Like, that means you're taking all the kids that come through, essentially?
Yes, yes. Because we have partner sites, so we have 15, and if another school has 14 and another school has 16, we combine the two classrooms.
So I think that as we move forward, there's lots of room to think about how we find students, for example. And I would like to say that when we look at PreK Services of Wake County Schools, we are an arm, a significant arm of PreK in the community. But we also have certified daycares and other locations that serve students as well. And those students are also receiving opportunities to be prepared for kindergarten through that experience. And so this really is targeting students who've not had any type of experience, even in a community daycare, for example. And when you see the number of students that are coming and what may be available or not, I think we see a push-pull in terms of an acknowledgement that we have a large waiting list in Wake County for students who are eligible for PreK services and not a sufficient number of PreK seats available, whether in daycares or school slots. So we've got a waiting list there. So there are more students on the waiting list than what we're serving through this summer program, so we know there's a gap.
Our waiting list for PreK, our traditional PreK, is up to date is 358 students are on the wait list. 358.
Waiting for those 133.
Waiting, exactly.
Classrooms.
Yes.
So who is,
350 to that 430
who
total students.
is served in those 133, I'm sorry?
We
One at a
have,
time.
so the large majority of our PreK classrooms are students who are identified in the community with special needs that we must serve. But we've increased our footprint in the last couple of years with what we call blended classrooms. And I think you see that in the budget document, where we're trying to combine a classroom so that it serves both Title I students and special needs students. And what that does is it allows us to serve more students in a classroom, and it actually costs less in terms of the adults when you look at the number of students that are being served. And it provides an experience where students of the special needs students are more in a least restrictive environment because it's a blended classroom. But the blended classroom is Title I eligible students. So there are a lot of other kids out there that could benefit if we had the funding and the spaces even.
Dr. Martin and Mr. Hill.
Particularly related to that, I had a parent ask me the other day, who's blended where there's special needs and Title I. Does the special needs, does the teacher need to be required, is the teacher required to be special needs certified to be in that class?
BK certified. BK certified.
BK, which is
Birth to kindergarten.
birth to K, but not special needs. So
Well,
Birth to kindergarten allows
Covers that.
the teacher to teach both special education and regular education in early childhood, birth through kindergarten age.
Okay,
it
and so
is
the special ed certification comes after K
Yes,
then, or?
beginning of K.
Yes, well, birth through K means that they can teach through K, but there's also a degree that you can get in special education from kindergarten on through 21,
Okay.
depending.
Okay. Because there was some concern that the special needs children were not getting the special needs experience that they need
Well,
from the
it's funny
teacher.
that you should say that, because a parent stopped me last night, I wonder if it's the same person.
Could be. Yeah.
But with the same exact question, and we stayed outside at the open house last night until 9:30 talking about it.
Mhm.
And I think that she now understands, this particular parent, that the birth through kindergarten is a certification
certification.
for special education for early
Okay.
childhood. It's just also a certification for regular early childhood.
Okay. Thank
So,
you.
Mr. Hill.
Yeah, last summer I had the opportunity to be at a school that had an early start program from day one to the end of the third week. And the difference from day one, I tried to stay away from where they were, to even the middle of the first week and then the second week and the third week, to see the growth in those kids, and there are going to be students who are going to be K at our school. Some of the K, it was amazing. It's a super program. And if there's any way we can expand it, I'd be all for it. A quick question, are we keeping longitudinal data to see how those students do compared to maybe students who are in pre-K by the time they're maybe in the 3rd grade, to see what advantage maybe they've gained and if they've retained that advantage?
Go ahead.
So in 2004, there was a study conducted by, it was Evaluation and Research at the time, on Early Start, and it did show some gains. So that's why we've continued the program, and there were some positives and some suggestions as well. But we have not revisited that since 2004. So that's actually something that we've talked about for not just Early Start, but for our pre-K programs in general.
Okay. Just curious. Just curious. I mean, on the ground in year 1, it's awesome because those students are very much ready for kindergarten when they come in and excited about it. And parents are really excited too. I think partly because they start the summer, end their summer 3 weeks early.
No, that's anxiety. Ms. Devon?
Well, I think the Early Start program seems like a great bang for the buck, and I certainly support trying to expand it. I have just clarifying questions about our basic pre-K program. When you reference the 370 or however many that's on the wait list, how are they identified? Are they folks that are under a certain income level that can apply? Or can anybody, how?
Sure. So the number that I gave you for the wait list, that is, we have a shared application to make it easier for the community. Title I Pre-K, Head Start, and NC Pre-K, we have the same application so that families complete that one application, and depending on its income for NC Pre-K and Head Start and its academic need for Title I Pre-K. So that's the difference between the programs. So when we look at that 358, those are the slots that we have children that are on that wait list that cannot be accommodated in any of those programs because we do that as a joint effort.
Thank you.
But that was the pre-K wait list, not the early
Yeah,
start.
Correct.
Correct.
This
Early
is
start,
pre-K.
early
Full
start does
classroom.
not, does or does not have wait list.
Early Start does not have a wait
Wait,
list.
thank you for that clarification. All right, any other questions, Mr. Sutton?
I have a similar question, same question Mr. Hill had, but also wanted to ask too. Do we have demographic data on the students that participate in?
We do, yes. That is information that we can provide for you from our 2015 participants, from our pre and post data.
Any other
So
questions
then-
of this one?
yeah. So given the research that I guess was done, and do we know, or can we safely say that this is a program that has had an impact on closing the achievement gap? I mean, we know that early learning, early pre-K is a strategy. Has this been, or has it had an impact on the gap in Wake County? Is it something we can sort of further?
I think that I think the initial data for the impact of the immediate programming in terms of readiness for kindergarten shows gains. I think as, I don't know who was it asked in terms of how we follow those kids past kindergarten, past entry to kindergarten, is work that we did a few years back, but we need to go back to revisit to see that impact now. Because I think when you look at the literature that is out there are mixed results around how long that oomph lasts, and sort of a diminishing return as the kids get older. So that's in general, but I can't tell you specifically about our students because we've not tracked it that way recently.
Do all of the elementary schools that are in the elementary support model, do they have this in place?
I do think that we have one elementary support model school that was not able to get enough students for Early Start, but we would have to confirm that.
So for the most part, yes, there may be one that's not. We can check.
But we really do want to require this, is our goal, at all Title I traditional schools.
Right,
That is our goal.
Any other questions? questions about early start?
We have one more.
Yes, we gotta end with this slide.
Yes.
So as you heard the story about Diego from Becky and the Early Start teacher, we just wanted to remind you that our school district really is providing an early start to these students so that we can meet our strategic plan goal of students becoming productive citizens and graduating ready for higher education or a career.
Because it starts in pre-K.
But I think pre-K not being a magic bullet, because you have to have strong K-12.
Yes.
And I think that's what we found, the Head Start and the continuum. Education is long, hard work, our teachers know that, but this is the way to start them off right. So, thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
All right, and that concludes our work session for today. We'll move into our meeting, which will start our public hearing. So we'll get that started at 6:30 and the meeting at 5:30. We'll be adjourned. 45 to 12.
We are.
Cheers to